guys, welcome to video 2 of SEO for writers. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the baseline things that you need to think about if you want your website to rank on Google. The first thing is site health and site security. So security, if you go to a website, right before the hyperlink, you'll see there's a little lock symbol. That means the site has an active SSL certificate. So if you want to make sure that your website has an SSL certificate, you're going to have a look and see if you have that little padlock symbol right next to the web address. If you don't, then there's a few things that you can do. Most website platforms like Wix and Squarespace, they should already include your SSL certificate automatically, and you'll know if a website is secure because it'll say HTTPS, and if it doesn't have that certificate, it won't have the S on the end, it'll just be HTTP, then like / whatever you want it to say, HTTPS. If you're using WordPress or you're self-hosting your website, like through SiteGround, Bluehost, that kind of thing, they do offer a free SSL certificate, and normally you just need to have that turned on in your hosting panel, and some hosts will auto install it for you. Now, if for whatever reason it's not included with your website, you can buy an SSL certificate through whoever's hosting your website or a third party. Another thing that can affect your ability to get ranked on Google is having a bunch of broken links. For example, if you have affiliate links on your website that go to Amazon's or other people's websites, if those links get broken, so the page no longer exists, those broken links will signal to Google that your site is not healthy and not well maintained, so they're not going to rank it. You want to make sure that any links that you do have are up to date and necessary. It's a good thing to link out, but not if they're broken. You want to make sure that you have a valid sitemap for your website. Now, a sitemap is basically a roadmap for Google when it's trying to index your website and see what it's all about. It shows all of the different pages that you have. You can have a plugin which automatically updates and populates a sitemap. If you don't have one of those, it's going to impact your ability to get ranked on Google. Whichever website builder you use, some of them might have it built in, but I'm sure there's some sort of plugin or add-on you can use to create one because they are very important. And if you wanted to check your sitemap is up to date or accurate, you can go to Google Search Console. That's completely free. It'll also point out if there's any indexing errors and pages that it can't access, so you'll be able to have a good look at that there. The next foundational item you need to know about if you want your website to rank is page speed. Have you ever tried to go to a website and it's loading extremely slowly? It feels like you're back in the dial-up age, and rather than waiting, you're more likely just to click back and go somewhere else. So you want to make sure that your page speed is optimized. If Google sees that a lot of people who click to go to your website bounce right back off again, it's not going to rank you because it sees the website as something that people aren't interested in and they click away from immediately. One of the biggest culprits for low page speeds is large images. I know that a lot of us like to have images and we like things to look pretty. There are ways to do that without impacting your site speed too much. I'm referring to WordPress because that's what I use for building websites, but if you use another website builder, they will have ways for you to optimize your images, or you can do it manually. If you go to Google and type in image resizer, there are so many different ones out there. I'll show you one that I've used before in the past, and you can make your images smaller there. But for WordPress, I have a plugin that runs automatically in the background and it reduces the size of my images. That allows me to upload them without worrying too much about it impacting my page speeds. Also, the theme that you use, if you are using a pre-built theme, some of those can be pretty bloated with lots of JavaScript and different things in the background, so you want to choose something that's fairly simple. Your site speed's more important than it looking super fancy if nobody's ever going to see it because it loads too slowly. There are free places like PageSpeed Insights that you can use, and they're going to show you some of your problem areas. Certain pages might load really slowly, and I believe it will also tell you how things are looking with mobile page speed as well as desktop. Now, talking about mobiles, the next item on our list of foundational things you need to be aware of is mobile responsiveness. A lot of these website builders are aware that we need to be designing things mobile first, and many of them do give you the option to see the layout. So you want to make sure that you are using some sort of website builder that allows you to structure differently for mobile, tablet and desktop based on the width of the screen viewing your website, and Google tends to rank mobile first. So if your website doesn't load good on phones or hasn't been designed and adapted to fit on phone screens adequately, Google is not going to rank you. You also want to make sure that things like buttons are easy to tap. You want to make sure that the touchable area is adequate for people to use. General usability is really important. You don't want to have some crazy pop-ups that look fine on desktop, but when they come up on mobile, they're so big that the person can't even close them. They're like eating the entire screen. The next thing that is foundational that you want to follow is having a decent content structure. When you're building a website, you're probably familiar that you have different things like headings that are labeled as H1, H2, H3, H4, and so on, as well as the paragraph text. So you want to make sure that you're using those logically, that you have like your main header as H1, subheadings as H2, subheadings as H3. If you are intermixing and using them out of order and in strange ways, that's going to confuse Google when it's trying to index your site. It's also going to probably confuse the people that are viewing your website too. When it comes to structure, you also want to make sure that your URLs are pretty clear. Usually a shorter URL is preferable. You also want to make sure that any internal links you have are guiding users throughout your site. They're pointing to the page where you sell your book or something like that. You want to show Google and the people on your website what's important and where you ultimately want them to reach. Now, we have briefly touched on image optimization, more in the sense of keeping the file size small so that your page loads well. But there's more to image optimization than just the size and the page speeds. You want to make sure that you're using a descriptive file name, and we'll go into more on this when we start talking about keywords. Instead of the file name being like screenshot 3 or img 1234, you want to make sure that it's descriptive, like cat licking its paw on a book cover. I don't know. Depending on whatever your picture is about. You also want to make sure that you're adding alternative text. This is helpful both for Google and for low vision readers who maybe use a screen reader, which is going to read out the description. Instead of them being able to see the image, it's going to give them the alternative text that you've provided. And while we're talking about low vision readers and having alternative text for them, we also want to make sure that there's good contrast. Even for people who have decent vision, if you're trying to read really pale grey writing on a white background and there's hardly any contrast, it's going to be very difficult. So Google does recognise things like that. And there are contrast usability checkers online. If you have way too low contrast for it to be easy to be visually read, then that will knock you down in Google's rankings too. You also want to make sure that your text is not too small. It's been a while since I've looked at the Google requirements, but I believe you don't want it to be any smaller than 16 points in size. The next thing you need to be aware of is content freshness. If you abandon your website for a long period of time, Google will take that as thinking that your website's no longer active, and again, it's not going to rank it. It only wants to provide the best content to people who use Google, so it's going to make sure that the freshest content really gets priority over a stale website that doesn't look like it's showing any signs of life. And honestly, even just once a month is more than enough for Google to acknowledge that your website is relevant and updated. And you don't have to build new blog posts every single month if you're not able to. Even going back and updating an old blog post is more than enough. If you have a TBR list, updating that. If there's been some new developments with your book and you want to upload that, perfect. It doesn't have to be an entirely new page. You can just update the existing one and Google will recognize that too. One of the last things that I want to talk about today is called domain authority. Moz has a free domain authority checker, so you can pop your website in there and have a look and see what your domain authority score is currently, and then you can check again in a couple of months once you've implemented some of these SEO strategies and see if your domain authority has increased. Domain authority lets Google know that your website's legit and it's not just some sort of spam. It does take time to build domain authority. It's not something you can just rush through. Amazon Microsoft, these big household names, they have a perfect 100 score for their domain authority because they are so well recognized as being safe, used, maintained websites. However, if you go to some spammy website, then the chances are it has a very low domain authority, and that very low domain authority is going to make it less likely for Google to rank that web page. Now, don't be discouraged, because when you start out, your website is probably going to have 0 to 5 domain authority, very little. But I have had websites rank on the first page of Google with a 10 or 12 domain authority, which is perfectly achievable. So how do you increase your domain authority? So if you were on another writer's podcast, or you wrote a guest blog on their website and you were able to get a link, so if they hyperlinked your web address, your website, from their website, and they have a good domain authority, so anything higher than yours, then they share some of that link juice, and you might not see your domain authority immediately go up with every new link, but building those links is going to, over time, increase your domain authority. Now, not all links are created equal. For example, if you got linked from The Telegraph, that one is going to be more substantial and give you more link juice than getting a link from another author who maybe only has a slightly higher domain authority than you. Quality is definitely worth more than quantity for this kind of thing. Yeah, so different ways that you can get those kind of links. If you're featured in like your local newspaper or your local writing club group, if you get a short story posted in an online magazine somewhere, all these types of things, you want to request a link back to your website. For work, we have been featured in regional newspapers and they haven't provided a link, so I've then gone and reached out after the article was released and requested that they go back and provide a link, and they have. There's never been any issue with that, so don't be afraid to ask if you're featured out there already, but maybe you've just set up your website now and the article was a couple of months ago or whatever. Just reach out. The worst thing that they can say is no. According to Moz, domain authority is calculated by taking into account several signals. There's actually 40 different signals in total, including the number of incoming links pointing to your website, the quality and relevancy of incoming links, the quality of your website's content. Like I said in the last video, if you missed it, I'll tag it up here. You do not want to be a spammer right now. Google has made some changes and they are not okay with spammers. So quality content, guys, it's important. Social signals, so the popularity of your domain, and social media networks. So your viewership, the more traffic that you're getting to your website, the more that Google's going to be like, okay, maybe we like them after all. And that'll help increase your domain authority too. And your website's SEO performance in general, which we're going to cover in the rest of this series anyway. In the next video, we're going to look at some of the different tools that you can use. I'll give you a little bit more in-depth detail on those. The video following that, we're going to be doing some keyword research, which is the most exciting and fun part of SEO. After that, we're going to look at how to optimize a blog post for SEO. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on foundational ways to improve your SEO for your website. I hope you learned something new. I'm trying to do this in small bite-sized chunks so that it's not too overwhelming, because there are so many variables and factors that go into SEO and getting ranked at the top of Google. Please do like and subscribe to follow along and get notified when I release a new video. Okay guys, so that is everything that I have for you today. Leave any questions down below. If there is something specific that you want me to answer about SEO, please drop that down in the comments and I'll make sure to get to it in the next video. That's it for today guys. I hope you have a lovely day and get some writing done. Take care.